Oh, you're good, man. Anyway, how you doing, man? It's what, 10:54 out there, right? West Coast.
Yeah, it's about 11 o'clock almost.
Nice.
So,
And you are in Oregon, right?
technically, I'm up in Washington,
Washington.
just across the border. So, and if I say Vancouver, everybody thinks Canada, but it's
Right.
Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know we've talked once a while ago, but I grew up in Hillsboro, right outside Portland, so the whole PNW is my stomping ground.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, dude, I always want to start with just getting people's backstory, right? Like every indie filmmaker has like what almost seems like the same journey, but also a completely unique and different journey and story. So take us through your, whether it was childhood or more recently, how you got into liking movies and then eventually wanting to make movies, and kind of take us towards like the first steps of right before Feet of Death and feature films got started.
Of course, yeah. Grew up playing with my dad's VHS camera, making really cheesy music videos and stuff like that. So that's kind of my first taste of filmmaking was playing around with VHS back in the day. I never thought once about it as career or whatever. And like most filmmakers, I went to college to be a mechanical engineer. And then after about a term of that in differential calculus, I switched to liberal arts and decided to pursue something that I've always loved, filmmaking. So went to Oregon State. It's not a film school, but it had a program called New Media Communications because that was back in 2005, and so the internet was new, and so I learned about nonlinear editing, Final Cut, shooting, even took 3D design classes, animation and whatnot. It was really broad. They had a school TV station, so I did like live news switching, kind of got a taste for everything. It was kind of great. From there, started working in low budget commercial production at TV stations, making your local Mattress World commercials, that kind of thing, your cheap indie stuff. But it kind of allowed me to cut my teeth on interacting with clients, scripting, editing, because there was two of us in the whole department, so we did everything. Lighting, shooting. Started on beta camera, which was hilarious, and finally switched to HD. Did that at a few different stations for like 4 years, and then on the side, I was doing freelance visual effects and stuff, and finally got good enough at VFX that I got a gig at a house in Portland, Oregon, when some shows were filming there, like Grimm on NBC and Leverage, some other
Mhm.
stuff, and started working in the compositing department there. And compositors take the 3D renders from the 3D department and the live action footage shot on set, and we try to blend them seamlessly. Started as like a junior artist, but by the end of like season 5, I was running the compositing department, which was amazing. So that was a great way for me to learn leadership and working with teams and whatnot. But as much as I love that job, post can get real old, always sitting behind a computer, working 50 to 100 hours a week. So I loved it, but long term, I think I'd go crazy if I did nothing but VFX. I love them, but no longer have the desire to do that full time. Then in 2017, our life took a drastic turn and we did something crazy. By this point, I had two girls. My youngest was 6 months, oldest was 4. We sold our house, bought a fifth wheel, and started traveling the country full time, making travel videos, RV videos, and we did that for like 3 years. Saw all over the country. We circled the country multiple times. It was a ridiculously difficult but amazing time. And really, YouTube scratched my itch of being a filmmaker, but it didn't. My passion was always feature films, and so um, then after about 3 years of that, COVID happened. So all the parks shut down. We could no longer travel. So we bought some property up here in Washington. And then I started going headfirst into indie film, started working on sets, running camera, doing AE stuff, even doing VFX supervising since I have that background. Then around 22, started writing because I figured no one's going to give me a script to shoot, so I need to write my own. And then shot Feet of Death in 23, released it in 24 with indie rights. I know people always want to know what distributor I go with. And yeah, then that brings us up to now. I haven't shot anything since then. I am in pre-production on my next film, which I'm super excited about. It's a sci-fi, and we're going to shoot that early next year.
Ooh, and I want to get into that, but okay, that's great. So, and I remember now, from our call a long time ago, the YouTube thing, that's crazy because like, yeah, I was doing YouTube travel content too, and then it wasn't filling that void, and I was wanted to take the next step. So go back to when you guys moving to Washington, you're starting to get on those indie film sets. I'm wondering if you did kind of what I did. Was that all just for you to get as much of a taste of narrative productions as possible because you knew you were going to go off and do something soon, or did you not know you were going to make Feet of Death at that point?
No, I really didn't have. I mean, I knew I wanted to direct, but I didn't have anything written for the first couple years that I was doing that. It was really just about making connections, getting on set more because my main experience was post. So I knew I could do all the VFX and cut and whatnot because I had years of experience doing that stuff. But my on-set experience was limited to shorts and things that I had done here and there. So got hooked up with some people and got on some, mid-tier films, which were pretty awesome coming from nothing. It's funny, actually, the guy I did stuff with, I actually met back in my early YouTube days before we sold our house and travel because I was actually doing other YouTube stuff, shorts and whatnot, before we did our travel content.
Mm.
So I had met him 4 or 5 years earlier. He was in LA for a few years and then came back up, and we both kind of came up here on the same time. So I started helping him out on his stuff. And it kind of allowed me to do all sorts of stuff, learn about, lighting and cinematography from his DP because I knew basics, but I didn't have the onset experience about, working with minimal lighting, working with the sun, I knew basic composition, but just getting hands-on experience was great. So camera operated on a bunch of those and just kind of learned all sorts of aspects of it till eventually on like the third, fourth film I was working with him, I did AE. He liked my AE stuff so much that I actually cut that feature. So that was awesome to have my first feature cut under my belt. And then I did another one that I cut for him, learned about 5:1 mixing, all sorts of stuff.
Nice. That's awesome. So at what point, because I know for a lot of us like aspiring directors or like the vision part can come into our heads. That's what we're supposed to be good at, right? Is like how we're going to tell this story. And I think where the hang up for a lot of potential indie filmmakers is we've been transitioning out of that old world where you just assumed like you need a big budget, you need to go find people like to greenlight you essentially, right?
Yeah.
So I think the more interesting question for people that have done what you've done is at what point did you click go, oh, I can do this like completely on my own. I don't remember how much you had to self-finance this thing or not, but as far as just like this can be a way more contained thing, but still be a quality feature film production. When was all that kind of going through your head?
I definitely started writing Feet of Death knowing that I was going to do it on a micro budget. So from the script stage, because I had written other scripts before that, and they were like outlandish, probably multi-million-dollar scripts. As most early writers do, they just let their creativity flow, which is a great experience and learning, but it's not practical. So with Feet of Death, I specifically was like, okay, what do I have access to? What do I know are my strengths and things that I can lean into? And I knew I had access to a Bigfoot suit. I knew I had 5 acres of property out in the woods. I knew I lived here in the Pacific Northwest where we have gorgeous beauty of Mount St. Helens and lakes and all these things. And so I just kind of started writing based upon what I knew I had. So that way I knew I could do it for that micro budget, that sub $20,000 budget. And we did do a crowdfunding. We used Seed and Spark. Honestly, I love and hate crowdfunding. I think we only got 1 or 2 investors that were not people I directly talked to, family and friends. So almost looking back based on my limited network. Now, if you have a big social media following or a larger network, crowdfunding could be great because you can bring these like soft acquaintances in and maybe they'll help sponsor you. But honestly, with the amount of time and energy the crowdfunding took and the percentage that the different softwares like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatever take, kind of feel like I should have just gone directly to the people I know, friends and family, and gotten checks from them. And it would have been easier and probably gotten just as much money. But it was a great learning experience. And
Well, that,
then,
if I could pause there, just because I think so many people ask about crowdfunding, and I've heard of Seed and Spark from several people. And first, I want to say, like, these are all great platforms to try to go out and achieve this. Like, if you are going to do crowdfunding, these
yeah,
can be great platforms, you know. Like, but I think what a lot of people get wrong about crowdfunding is they assume, especially if they do have some sort of social media presence, that this is going to be posting online and that strangers, people you don't know, are going to get found a fund. And that's, from everyone I've talked to, that's really not how it works. It seems like it's almost like a 2 to 3 month full-time job campaign of, I don't want to use the word harassing, but like messaging all your closest family and friends, anybody that might potentially be able to help you, and then continuing to remind them and continuing to remind them until seeing if they cross the finish line. And I think if a lot of indie filmmakers kind of knew that was the case, they might avoid going that route. So does that sound accurate to you? Or
yeah. I mean, it's definitely. I probably did not put as much time. Everybody always says it's a full time job for the month leading up to and the campaign itself. I don't know if I was just lazy. I mean, I worked a lot and posted a lot, and you have to get past that like fact that you're going to feel annoying. Emailing everybody and posting multiple times a day. So I definitely, after a couple weeks, probably wasn't as constant with that as I should have been. I will say I did get one big donor that I think was from my social media following. So I did get, we raised about 10 grand, and I got $1,000 from someone who I didn't personally know or reach out to. So they
wow.
are out there, and you do have that network of people where it was worth it, because the Seed and Spark takes, I think, like 3%. So I got that extra. I got 10% that I wouldn't have gotten just going directly to people. So it was worth it. It definitely is a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, and they're out there. It only, I don't, especially at the micro budget level, it only takes a few people like that, and you can really be like, okay, we got something here. So that's good to
But
know.
most of your investments will be the under $100 and probably under $40, which is like, when
Mhm.
you do the math, it's like, oh man, I need like 300 people to to do this. So
Yeah.
it definitely is a struggle.
Interesting. No, yeah, yeah. It's just it's a big topic people bring up a lot, and it can be really good, but there's definitely a way to play that game. And every situation, I think, is unique. Now, I like what you said about the Bigfoot thing. You had access to this suit, but was any other of the Bigfoot element like on your mind, like as far as, oh, this will help with the commercial value of the film, Bigfoot, and like the fandom surrounding that, or
Definitely. I knew at the micro budget level I couldn't bring on any stars or even B-list actors like you see in a lot of these mid-tier, the $400,000, $500,000 films. They bring in some B-list actors to help get distribution and sell it. I knew I couldn't afford that. So from the concepting stage, I chose a topic that I knew there was a massive fan base for. So I always say this, like, I couldn't afford Tom Cruise, so I have Bigfoot. Bigfoot is my star. He's prominent on the poster. He is the main theme of the story. Now, granted, it is a double-edged sword, because by making a Bigfoot movie, people expect a certain thing, and I didn't want to make the usual Bigfoot movie, so mine's much more of a mystery thriller. You're really trying to figure out what's going on and who has committed these murders in these first two acts, and then the monster Bigfoot action is really not till the third act. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, as people expect a certain thing from these movies, but I knew that if I didn't have that, then no one would watch it. Because I've heard so many horror stories from people that have made similar level films, and they get it, get distribution or self-distribute and get it on Tubi, which they're stoked about, and then they make like $500. So even if you're only doing the micro budget film and you're spending 10 to 20 grand, $500 is not going to cover that. So I knew I needed something to help promote it. So, and I was, from the time I was writing, I was joining Bigfoot Facebook groups. I was, trying to get part of that community and make people aware of what was going on. Like when I was doing the Seed and Spark campaign, I would share that on there, because I know there was a community, which even if they didn't invest, at least they were aware of, they started to hear the movie Feet of Death. And so that way, when it did come out, then I would have that audience. I even made a decent connection from someone that runs like a Bigfoot Facebook group. So he would always share everything I put. So trying to take advantage of that audience and be present in that community was my marketing, because I had no money for marketing, or very little money for marketing.
No, that I mean, I think that's brilliant and incredible, and people should be jotting down notes because, again, guys, like I know a lot of us, we all want to be artists, right? That's why most of us want to be directors first. But you have to learn all these things because if you ever want to do it yourself, you have to then fill the void that on the bigger stages, right? A distributor or marketing teams, they would handle that, and they'll find ways creatively sometimes to sell anything. But it's like at this indie film level, especially before we make a name for ourselves, we have to play those roles. So the idea that while you're writing a film and before it's even coming out, you're cultivating the potential audience for that film, I think that's incredible and what everyone needs to be doing. And to share a little bit on our end, right? Like that gives me hope because again, my film, if you want to break down, it's more of a drama, right? Which is like the big no-no.
Don't
And
say that.
but our entire film is targeted at a specific niche style audience, right? The YouTube travel content creator, anyone who's travel vlogs or kind of works in the influencer sphere, this movie's kind of for them. And we've been, like you said, in those groups, right? Like leaving funny DMs and comments on people's content in that space, for the last 8 months and as we build things up. And yeah, it's like you have to have that audience come through for you. And now, of course, we hope to maybe break out of that audience. The film can work more broadly, just like your film. It's a great mystery thriller. Even if we got to the end and it's not Bigfoot, could have been any creature or even like a human, right? There's good drama there. There's good acting. So, but you got to do something to like get in with an audience. And I think the niche audience angle is a tremendous one for indie filmmakers to take.
Yeah, no, and speaking of your film, like honestly, you have been great about posting and whatnot, and the kind of content you're sharing and the quality of the content you're sharing. It's kind of makes me jealous of your quality of stuff you're putting out there. So I just wanted to give you props on that. You're doing an awesome job.
Well, that's just because I have a really badass wife that is just becoming a marketing social media guru. And while I'm over here cutting the film and working with the whole post team, she's just taking all that BTS and chop, chop, chop and just getting stuff out there. Because you can't do it all. Like it would have been almost impossible for me to like deliver what you're seeing on the page right now while managing the film and making sure it's going to be the right quality. Like that's too hard. But we've been able to like streamline it as a team together, which I know in a lot of the indie film space, right, families involved. Talk about that. I know your family was heavily involved in helping you, right, with this. Talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, my wife is super creative. She's written, well, her first book, which is more of a young adult book, is we self-published, so you can get it on Amazon right now. It's called Tales of Tullamore. So it's all about dragons and mermaids and kids going to these fantasy worlds. So she's extremely talented at writing. She's working on her second book, which is for more of an adult audience. But so knowing that, I took full advantage of her creativeness, and from the concept meetings, like I actually vividly remember we were driving to Central Washington, and on the drive to my family's there, we were coming up with notes. I was like, okay, like I was talking about, I have a Bigfoot suit. I want to do a Bigfoot movie. What are some ideas could be happening? You write what you know. So I was like, okay, we were on YouTube for almost 10 years. And so I was like, okay, let's have a content creator in there and have, okay, he's investigating this type of stuff. So just kind of from the beginning, I had her involved and was bouncing ideas off of her. Then I would write, she would edit, help me with dialogue. She would help come up with some scenes. So from the beginning, she was a huge help in just the creative process. And then on actual production, she would help produce in far as like logistics and finding places for talent to sleep. And then she loves cooking, so she was our caterer and did crafty. So she wore all sorts of hats.
Nice.
And then obviously in post, she would give me ideas on edits like, no, that sucks, or what about this? And so she was a huge help from beginning to end. And actually something I was really stoked about, which I wasn't expecting, is my oldest, who I believe was 10 when we shot, actually came on set and helped. She would like run the clapboard and help, basically be like a PA on set. And then she actually even chose, after doing it one day, to like not go hang out with her friends, but to come on set with me, which was like, it warmed my dad's heart, which was amazing. So that was cool getting her involved in that aspect of things.
Nice. No, that's really cool. That's so similar. And I've been making these jokes the last year, like, hey, behind every great filmmaker is like a super badass wife that really like keeps our heads on straight. And I like what you said too about the edit. Like they're the best and critique judge. Like when you're bringing the wife in, at least for me, it was like, look at this scene I just cut, right? Or like what I'm working with, and like they don't even need to say anything. I can see on her face. It's like, all right, back to work, or like, yes, right. Like, it's like trying to make her happy was like the bigger kick of anything, right? Like, does this work for you? But that's really cool that, she was involved in all that with you guys. Cause yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed the experience. It can be intense a little bit, right? On set. And it's funny in our case, like, it was supposed to be she's producing, I'm directing, but on set, I ended up being the one who was kind of more like, the producer head. Like, we got to finish this. And she'd be like, no, we'll do another take of that. And it's like, we almost ended up switching roles on set, which was like a little annoying, but also appreciative that she even had such respect for the creative vision of things. It was like, no, we can get a better one of that. And I was like, no one wants to get another take more than me, but we got to finish this day. Right. Like
That's
the
hilarious.
which is a good segue. So talk about, when you're doing indie film, I'm guessing were a lot of your sets like just real locations that you didn't even maybe like permit for, just you went in the woods and shot, or like explain like how you did your locations, because your film looks great. It's in a bunch of really cool locations in the PNW.
Yeah.
How did you go about that?
Yeah. Totally got permits. No, no, we didn't get any permits. But honestly, in the Pacific Northwest, it's nothing like shooting down in LA or whatever. Like
Of
no one,
course.
no one will question you about filming. And in fact, so yeah, as far as locations, a lot of the locations were actual locations in the actual town that was in the script. So Cougar, the town that is in the film, uh, is I literally went to that town. I talked to the country store. I talked to the bar and grill, and they were both like, "Yeah, we'll help out." So literally, the scene where he goes into the country store, that gas station, they were during operating business hours, and then the actual cashier was just standing off to the side. And then when a customer came in, we would have to pause. They would
Mhm.
deal with the customer, and then we would film. But they charged us nothing for filming there and just let us film there, so it was worth the hassle. And it
Yeah.
was actually kind of funny. The the actress that was pretending to be the cashier got so used to it that when people came in, she would like answer questions and point them to the back because they would think she was really working there. Um, and then we shot both. One of the houses, actually, the really nice log cabin that we filmed at was a neighbor in this lake place that my dad has kind of a timeshare at. So like it, I didn't know them, but he kind of knew them. We just reached out, talked to them, told them what we were doing, and they're like, "Yeah, you can come film here for a day." So again, we paid nothing for that, and we got this amazing production value of this log cabin that we shot at. Another one was a family house. The one location we did have to pay something for, but we paid like little to nothing, $100 a day for 3 days, was the small town sheriff's office.
Mhm.
We set decked that completely. It was actually like a woman's health clinic. And so we stripped everything out there, brought in the flags and the desks and the chairs and set up the office space and did all that on day one. And then we shot day 2 and 3 and then stripped it down. So $300 and we got this pretty cool looking small town sheriff's office. And then the rest was just either on my property, like the first death in the movie is my technically my backyard because we have 5 acres out here, and then there's just tons of beautiful waterfalls and lakes and Mount St. Helens and everything that's all around here that is within like an hour drive of where I live.
Yeah, and for you, because I know this was big for us. Like again, people like are big on the permit thing, and I don't know if it's because maybe it's just a kudos to the stuff you're making, right? People are assuming you maybe had all this big equipment because of how good it looks, but people don't realize it's like you can go operate in a lot of places without a permit. The only thing is like you just can't bother people, right?
Yeah,
Like you're in most
be
places you're
respectful,
there
basically.
with a camera out. You just like can't shut a street down, and at the end of the day, if someone asked you to leave, you'd actually have to do that, which is more. That's what we were doing in Indonesia. It's just that's the risk you take. But in our case, it was like, well, if they kick us out of here, look at the options. Let's walk over to that corner, walk over to that corner, right? Like environment. So when it came to equipment and your footprint in some of these locations, I'm guessing in a store, right? You didn't have giant soft boxes taking up the whole thing, or giant dollies and tripods, right? Because then you probably wouldn't have been able to do and navigate the way you're saying, where they're literally open in your shooting. So how did
Yeah.
you operate with minimal equipment, but still keep, contrast ratios and, respect the quality of a feature film, right?
Yeah. So the funny story about just even permits is I was talking to another filmmaker who literally shot an entire film in LA and didn't permit anything. And they even had scenes where they were pulling out airsoft guns. So even in the insane areas like LA, it's still possible. It's just you have massive limitations. And like you said, you can't be setting up a massive dolly track, use a gimbal or whatever. But as far as our experience goes, I specifically scripted certain things. I had two different looks for the movie. We had our cinematic look, which was like 235, super widescreen, and then we had our in content creator YouTuber look, which was 16:9. And the way I was able to work around like that is most YouTubers don't set up lights. Most YouTubers use natural light, and they're holding it out with a selfie stick or Gorilla Pod or whatever. And so we embraced that in all of our content creator style things. It was either on a tripod, out with a Gorilla Pod, or if the camera was moving, I was trying to think, okay, how would he shoot this? He would do a B-roll moving shot, and then it would cut to him sitting with a static tripod shot. So like exactly how I would have shot all my stuff is I get my cinematic stuff when I can, but if I'm on camera, I'm either holding it or it's on sticks. And so that's exactly how we shot all of that content stuff. So in the store, there was one camera on sticks, which was our static wide 2-shot, and then he had the Gorilla Pod, which was shooting, actually it was a prop camera. It was like my old Canon 7D that he was using. So we would actually get the Blackmagic 6K Pro that we shot on. We would do one take with the wide and then switch to him holding it for the pretending that that's the camera he was shooting on. And so if you are just aware of your light and think about where light are, you really can make stuff look halfway decent even without having to do anything, as long as you're aware of where the sun is or where the natural light is coming from. That one, it just happened to be that, it wasn't great looking, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, and it's funny, like I actually don't like when you see higher budget things take the content creator view, right? And it clearly was like shot on a crazy camera, crazy good lighting, and almost matches the regular footage. It's like that's so unrealistic. Now I've been
Yeah.
on a shoot where like we were working with a guy who like the whole thing was like found footage style, and he wanted the natural lighting look, and he thought that meant never having lights on set, and we were like literally filming in the dark. So like you got to like have the balance, but no, you're right. It's like it's almost more convincing and immersive in the story if the thing you're cutting to is like actually believable. We think this is this guy doing
Yeah.
content around this thing, and no, I think it cut great in your film the way that was happening, totally believable. So now when you were shooting outside, like I love what you were saying about the sun and everything. um Same with what we did, right? We didn't even have a light stand for anything outside. We were playing with a bunch of tubes and catch lights, and we actually had this kind of mirror system that we were using to like use the sun to 3-point light. When you were outside, you have to do, I'm guessing, a lot of planning around where the sun's going to be at what time, and did that like really limit the amount of time you could be in a specific location?
Yeah, I mean, actually, unfortunately and fortunately, a lot of our exterior stuff was night. Actually, there's a lot of daytime too, but it just felt like there was a lot of night. So we did have, granted, with cameras nowadays, you can get away with little light. So we had a 200-watt bicolor light that we would throw as high up on a C stand as we could to be our moonlight. And then we would just move that one light depending on what shot it is, so you're always backlit. The moon, like if you watch movies, the moon is always behind your talent, no matter, even if you're cutting from one angle to another,
Yep.
the moon moves. So we obviously followed that, but with just a small little 200-watt, like we didn't even have a 600 or anything like that. But with the Blackmagic, our lenses were fast, like a 1.5, and I embraced some of the grain. In fact, I even added a little in color, added
Yeah.
a little bit of that film grain back into it because I just like that feel. And then obviously our key lights and front lights were just portable LED lights. So they're honestly just cheap GVM 1x1 LED panels that run off MPF batteries that I've had for years now. And they work great. And then we had a couple little, I don't even remember what they were, if they were aperture or what, little tiny bricks that we could, magnetize here or there for enhancing the fire glow or giving just that little kick to get that eye light or something like that.
Yep.
But nothing nothing massive, no big soft boxes, no, like, it's all prosumer stuff. But because we were thoughtful about how we did it, we used nice glass, not like amazing glass, but not cheap photo glass. We shot with the Irix Primes, I believe it was.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I said, they were fast. They had a nice look to them. And then honestly, color makes a huge difference. I had a guy that did color for me, and it made it that chef's kiss on top.
The color grade, you mean, in post?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's crazy how much of a difference that can make. We actually just found out we're doing an HDR grade, which is crazy. I
Oh,
wouldn't,
wow.
but my guy was like, dude, like, because it's all this like outdoor nature footage, he was like, you technically shot it on these cameras that can do it. And I guess he ended up with a mentor who like knows the Dolby Vision thing, that we bought the cheapest monitor that can do the 1000 nit monitoring.
Wow.
And doing that. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like to your point, color grading can really make a huge difference, especially just like in the feeling and the emotion of a scene or a shot and all that stuff. What I really want to get into with you is kind of the distribution angle, but also tying it back to the beginning, because you were, thank God, one of these filmmakers that actually was thinking about that beforehand. I guess sort of bring us to the beginning, but from a distribution angle, right? And then how that led to then the film was done. Did that change where you stood on your distribution mentality, like from starting the film to finishing the film? Take us through that journey.
Yeah. So I had some very minor experience with distributors, in that those films that I mentioned that I had cut earlier, I did deliverables to, like, I did a deliverable for a Tubi original. I did a deliverable to like VMI Worldwide and some other places. So I had known some of the stuff that goes with distribution, but more of the technical side and less of the negotiating contract. Like, I knew nothing of the producer side of that kind of thing, other than, there are a billion podcasts and there's Facebook groups that talk about distributors. So like, I was aware of like the predatory distributors and that kind of thing. So when I first got the film done, like, I had a cut locked. I already had a spreadsheet that I had took 30 different distributors with contact information. Some I had actual direct emails from like stuff I'd done in the past, and others were just like the info at distribution company that I found on their website or, on one of the Facebook groups. And then I just sent out, blasted out emails to everybody that I had that information with. If I had some sort of warm connection with them, like I had delivered before, I would mention that, so it wasn't just like a total cold email. And then start that process. And of like the 30 plus people that I sent it out to, maybe 5 to 10 asked for a screener, that I would then send them a private screener. And then of those like 5 to 10 that actually I sent the screener to, maybe 3 or 4 actually got back to me. Well, more got back to me, but like 3 or 4 actually were interested to move forward. And so I would do contract negotiations. Basically, they would send over their contract. I would read the legalese as best as I could to try to decipher it and negotiate back and forth. And I did even have a few distributors that offered MGs. They weren't great MGs. I think there was one as low as like $1,000 and then like 7,000. And then the best deal that I had was one company wanted to buy it out for in perpetuity, like forever. Like I would have nothing to do. I would just give it to them. And they were going to give me 25 grand, which was really tempting considering the budget was well underneath that. But ultimately I decided to just roll the dice, not take any of those deals, because those contracts were also like 10-year deals, 7-year deals, in perpetuity deals. And so
was that like a full acquisition they wanted? Like, we're buying the film from you and then hopefully they...
Yeah, the one that was actually offering the bigger compensation was like, I would hand it to them and then I would never have anything to do with it again. Yeah. But I would theoretically get that check up front. And
okay, that's what I was going to ask. Wasn't like, were they going to try to pay you that 25 grand over 3 years or 5 years? Or because I've heard...
No, I'm pretty sure. Granted, I never signed it, but I'm pretty sure it was just an upfront, here's the check, give me the movie, we're done type of thing moving forward. So it was tempting because I could then have taken that and rolled it into the next project. I could have actually paid my wife and I something because, for the year and a half of work that we did, we paid ourselves nothing, which is how we made it for so little. Because I cut it, I did VFX, I did sound design, I shot it, I did everything. Anyways, after all that, and dealing probably far too long negotiating with these people, I probably spent 3 to 6 months going back and forth of from beginning to end. And I just in the end decided to go with indie rights, which they gave me nothing up front. It was just their
Yep.
general deal of an 80-20 split, which is what they basically give to all their creators. And we just kind of rolled the dice and decided, you know what, it's a 3-year contract. Even if they do nothing or it doesn't work, we'll get it back in 3 years. And I honestly think from the other filmmakers that I have talked to who had made genre films and hearing the success stories they had, granted, Tubi took a dive around 23, 24 because I think that's near when Fox acquired it and started putting all the big movies on there.
Yeah.
So the indie creators were getting getting killed there. But I can tell you now we just got our fourth quarter's earnings. So we get every 3 months. They give us our analytics. We are out of the red and into the black. I haven't made that 25 grand mark yet, but we've made our money back. So I am super stoked about that.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Nice, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, and I understand what you're saying. Like with that offer, it was probably tempting, especially at that budget level. And then yeah, I was gonna say like for anyone that made a movie of your quality at your budget level, like I think Indie Rights is like the best people to be with right there. I've
Yeah,
actually my consulting producer's been talking to Linda a little bit for me because originally I was really thinking, oh, they're probably going to be ours too. They think our budget got a little ballooned and they're almost afraid of ours now because like ours is falling into a category where I think it needs marketing, right? Like that's a
yeah.
whole other discussion. But
Have you told people what your budget is or no?
uh
Like the
we
audience or no?
I mean it's around the 200K range. So it's
Oh
like
dang, okay.
way more up there than a lot of the things that you guys are doing. Yeah. So it's kind of almost like getting to that sketchy point of like, hey, you can't let it go past this because there isn't stars. And now you're really relying, like I said, on that niche to come through with you, and you have to really find a way to like ensure there's going to be some sort of buzz, right?
Yeah,
Which might take the budget up a little bit because you might need to actually have marketing funds to ensure that happens, right? Whether that's collaborating with some of the influencers or just running different style ads, trailers, whatever. I mean, like we want to do a screening for like prominent travel creators, maybe in LA, wherever, or maybe back in Bali again, where we can get a bunch of them in a room, kind of film their reactions, right? Almost like Paranormal Activity style stuff with the people reacting in the theater, only not them jump scaring in our case, but just like recognizable faces in that niche, maybe responding well to the film in a theater, right?
yeah.
Like that marketing, I think, would go further for us than just typical trailers. Um, but anyway, back on your case, like because you're with Indie Rights, that basically does mean you're taking the marketing all on yourself. So essentially, anyone that's found this film, right, has pretty much had to been pushed there from your marketing, which is social media exclusively, right? Probably for the most part. Have you done any paid marketing? What does your marketing campaign look like?
Yeah, I mean the social media is huge. Granted, you again have that limited audience of your network plus then the slight network beyond that if people are sharing your content. So I have done minimal. Actually, I did something similar to what you did. We had our cast and crew screening, and then once the film was distributed by Indie Rights, we retained theatrical rights. So I actually did a local screening here just before it launched digitally, and had someone there to film it and got some little interview things. So I did a similar thing. Granted, I didn't have influencers. I just had local people. So influencers is a much better idea if you can get them. And cut together little
Yeah.
10, 15s and like a 30 that I would then share on socials. And then I would also do minimal paid promotion. I've honestly found the best click-through rate on socials from still images and text and whatnot versus videos or trailers or whatnot. Unfortunately, since I am not personally distributing it like Film Hub, uh, I don't know. I don't know the conversion rates. I know my click-through rates, but I don't know my conversion rates, which is a
Yeah.
bummer because I don't know if I'm just throwing money out into the wind or not. But I know I'm not talking about thousands of dollars. I'm talking about hundreds of dollars because, again, we didn't have the budget for that. And then other than that, just like I said, posting on the different Bigfoot groups and Tubi groups and stuff like that on socials. That's pretty much it. I do think that, again, because of the fact that it's a Bigfoot movie, there's an audience out there, and we did get a nice spike from the first couple quarters. That was pretty awesome. Like the amount I was shocked at the amount of TVOD transactions we had.
Mm.
I was thinking nobody was going to buy or rent our movie, but we actually had, hundreds, if not, I think close to 1,000 people doing that, which is insane to me because we had nobody in
What
it.
was your most profitable TVOD platform? Amazon or
Oh yeah, yeah, Amazon for
yeah?
sure.
Okay.
It was also on, I think, Google or YouTube Movies, and that was like nobody there.
Or the path of having your own digital download where you could, keep more of the percentage or something like that. Like it's just something we've been thinking about for further out, but I didn't know if you had wrestled with that idea or avoided it for some reason in particular.
Well, it would depend if you've signed with a distributor and they have all digital rights, they would still take their percentage of that. Granted, if you could drive an audience there, go for it. But people already have their credit card saved in
Yeah.
Amazon. And so the purchase of an Amazon movie is like 2 clicks. And it's so much easier to spend $4 or if they're buying it, $20 there than having to get out your credit card on some random website if it's whatever MCK Pictures. Like,
Yeah,
you're less
exactly.
likely to get that.
Also, like, well, because like, forget making your own. It's like Vimeo on demand is all. It's one of the best like uploading things because there's no compression. You can upload a freaking 8K movie there if you want to, a full bit rate. You
Yeah,
can put it behind whatever paywall you want, and they only take 10%. But
but
they don't
nobody's there.
market that. It's like if Vimeo would like market that as like the thing, like it would work. But you're right, no one's on Vimeo. No one has their credit card stuck on Vimeo other than other like niche creators, basically. So
Yeah, they only
that
and Vimeo specifically makes their money from people who buy paid things. Like I had to buy a paid Vimeo account so that way I could send unlisted viewing stuff to whatever. I mean, you could, I guess, you could do that on YouTube as well, but if the link is still public, you can't password protect it.
yeah.
That's, I believe, where they make the majority of their money. But they do have the possibility to expand if they wanted to create. I don't even know if they have like a streaming channel for like smart TVs or not. So
They
uh,
should.
they definitely are missing out on that potential.
Yeah. No, I think it's just the whole game of streaming, I think, is a bubble that's changing. Like when you just follow like the money of what they've spent to build these libraries, but like it just doesn't seem sustainable that they can keep that going. And I think, as you know, like we're already in this new indie film revolution era. What do you what taking what you learned from your first film, what you were able to do with the budget and distribution, and what you're working on next? Like, because I know your goals is to keep going, right? You want to keep making films, keep producing films. What is the future looking like for you based on like what happened with Feet of Death and moving forward?
Depends if you're talking to me on a positive day or a negative day. On a negative day, I would say AI is going to take over the whole industry and we're all screwed. But on a positive day, I think like, you know what, I'm going to make as much stuff as I can, as quick as I can to try and make a name for myself. And like I said, I am working on my next project, which is a sci-fi. I'm that classic kid that watched Star Wars or that watched Star Wars as a kid, and then that got me into filmmaking. So like my heart is in sci-fi. And this one it's not a huge budget, but we are stepping up in budget, and I'm going to try and bring on some, B-list talent for some porting roles. So that way we actually hopefully have a chance at distribution, maybe getting some sort of decent MG up front, or if not that, at least hopefully that person's face or name will draw some audience in. So I am trying to go that route right now. We are currently in the stage of, I just brought on a producer, which is awesome because last time my wife just helped me produce, and like I said, she's a great writer and super creative, but her passion isn't in filmmaking. So trying to bring her on something like this beyond that is just not her wheelhouse. So I did bring on a producer for this one, which I am stoked about. So we are already talking about things like trying to refine the script and finding that right talent and figuring out, SAG and IATSE, or not IATSE, whatever the other one is. Now I'm blanking on it. All sorts of stuff like that. So I am trying to move forward, and my goal is to continue to have a successful filmmaking career. And so hopefully, like my mentality with Feet of Death is, I wasn't even expecting for sure to make my money back on that. I just wanted to be a stepping stone to do something bigger. And then again, with this next project, obviously I'd love to get our money back, but it's really a stepping stone to then hopefully go bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually we're on films that have a decent budget. I can actually pay myself.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. No, that's awesome. And yeah, it's funny because like yeah, there's the whole AI conversation, which is totally its own thing. I don't know. I personally like feel like as good as it can get, like I just don't see like a world where AI movies prompt and then people enjoy those to the extent they used to enjoy other films. I don't get as hung up on a lot of the AI stuff. I mean, as far as it making departments smaller, as like an indie filmmaker, I don't really have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
Now AI has other ethic questions about it, but like I'm all about like innovation, making stuff smaller. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to make the film I made just 10 years ago. It's nothing to do with AI, just camera tech and or at least I wouldn't have been able to keep the cinematic language I had in my film because we really utilized that Ronin 4D camera because it has that fourth axis. I really feel like we were able to get, I mean, if you're picky, it's not quite as smooth as a dolly track, but it's a lot closer and better than what you get from like a three axis gimbal, for example, and on a way bigger, sensor and whatnot. So, I mean,
I've
we
wanted
made
to
it
get my hands on
again.
one of those. I have not played with them yet, so super jealous of the fact that you shot on that.
Well, dude, I mean,
For
it's like you can 360 light something, then all of a sudden you have any crane shots kind of on the table, any dolly shots on the table. I mean, we were running down bikes in like the FPV mode, just again getting things that I feel like literally just 10 years ago, the equipment that could have achieved that same shot, now you're just talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for the day. And then like when I
yeah,
think of the locations we were to get that equipment into those spots and the insurance and permitting involved, it's just that's why these Hollywood movies are so expensive. And the fact that we were able to do some of that like spontaneously at times get shots that would have just the planning that it would have used to take because of equipment, like we're just entering these phases where I feel like the artist is going to thrive,
yeah.
and
No, I 100% agree with all that. AI as a tool has huge positives, but it won't stop there. Eventually, like Netflix already announced a month or two ago now that they are, I think they're in their pilot stage or whatever of their AI generated TV shows. It was the article I read was limited to animation at that point, but they were literally I think in beta of like you type in the genre you want, the type of story, whatever, and it'll kick out a 20-minute episode. And that's already what's public. So
mhm.
I can't imagine where it'll be in a year, 5 years, then 10 years is like I can't even imagine it, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
I think
that
it's more I mushed it in with I think the biggest competitor to like cinema is more just the fact that there's all these other forms of entertainment now. I mean, even when
yeah.
I was a kid, how old are you
I am going to turn 40 next year, so that's
Okay.
crazy.
So you're just like 9 years older than me. So we're similar enough to where it's like, even I feel like when I was pretty young, middle school and below, the theater, and if not the theater, at least a movie on DVD at home, like those were the primary forms of entertainment.
Yeah,
And there wasn't internet, there wasn't phones. And now that there is, it's just like so many people can niche down in all these directions. Kids just watch YouTube and not films anymore. I think that's almost more the problem. And AI is more only just, I feel like, feeding into that. It's now this
yeah,
other form of entertainment. I wouldn't even say it replaces films and traditional shows. It's just almost like this new thing, right? If you're prompting the show for yourself, that's not the same thing as watching a story. That's like creating a story and like almost watching it live. It's just a different thing. But it
yeah,
will take eyeballs away from the eyeballs that used to all go to the theaters on Friday nights, right? So now I think for indie film, that's fine. I just think we're going to see maybe long term the death of like the mainstream because it seems like if Hollywood, they just try to make these films that everyone can appreciate because it's the only way to justify a budget that big. But then you kind of end up with no one loves it. You maybe get a majority of people that are like, that was pretty good, but that's what I call the Netflix movie. It looks great, depending on your look. What if you want to say that? I just mean technically it looks good, and you
yeah,
watch it. You don't hate it when you're watching it, but like before it's over, you have forgotten about it, right? Like
yeah,
that's the Hollywood era we've been in, and I feel like streaming bubble kept those alive, but the actual ROIs on those films are just not there. So I don't see a world where they're going to continue to keep making those. Right? You
yeah,
have your breakout films like Sinners, but that's an original, beautifully constructed IMAX film, like where they took a big risk. But then you have like Mickey 17, like didn't do well and like similar type of risk. So I think for indie film, this is all great news, but like, yeah, long term, I just don't know at the Hollywood level if we're going to really see the mainstream film be a thing in 15 years, maybe. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, it's definitely a great point, and it is funny how uh, when a movie came, I mean, you used to be able to watch every movie that came out, even the VHS releases. Like literally could watch it if you wanted to. Like even like content creation aside, YouTube, Insta, whatever. That aside, like the amount of movies
Yeah.
released, you literally could not watch them. And so it is harder and harder to make that movie that stands out, to make that Jaws or to make that Jurassic Park, whatever. Granted, these are big movies, but like the even tentpole big movies starring The Rock or whatever, like a lot of times, like you said, you watch it and then you're like 10 minutes later you vaguely remember it. So I don't know if that's a a problem with society and our attention spans, and we just have so much content, like nothing makes a splash anymore, or if it's the content itself that just is marginal. So I don't, it's hard to tell exactly where that line ends. I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I always lean towards like it's 50-50 on that. It's it's the where our attention spans as far as society. But then, at least for me personally, when I am seeing a really good film for from the last couple of years, maybe that was Oppenheimer or Dune in IMAX, Sinners. I really thought Nosferatu was pretty wild and crazy in the theater. Like I'm like, no, it's not us. It's because when they're good, I'm here and I'm hooked. I
Yeah,
mean, I think the price of admission's hard because even I, as someone who loves movies, rarely want to actually go to the theater, but it's mostly because of the price. Like I can't risk $18 to maybe not even be entertained when there's just all the classics right there on my, whatever streaming I have that month because I
yeah.
switch.
Or in 30 to 60 days it'll be out on streaming. So I'm in that same boat.
Yeah. And for me, going to the theater is like it needs to be designed for the theater. So I love the IMAX experience. I love when a film is designed for theatrical. And I think that's the problem too. And I mean, indie films maybe aren't always trying to get in theaters. Like, and I don't know, like, I'm not going to have a theatrical release or anything. I'm well aware of that. But I had to design the film to play in that type of like immersive way because that's what I love to see.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people, especially at the indie level, they don't take that into account, whether it's going to actually play in the theater or not. I mean, people still have banging sound systems and screens at their home.
yeah,
And if you design it to play sensory like that, you can, to me, that's the difference between like a real piece of cinema and a show, right? Like a show, establishing shot, cut scene, dialogue, move on, right? But like a film, we want to try to take the audience on some sort of journey, if we can. And I feel like sometimes at the indie film level, that's what's not respected. But we're all doing our things here. I'm just ranting at this point, but anyway. But no, dude. So tell us real quick a little more about the next film coming up before I let you go. What decisions? I know you kind of touched on it, but was anything related to Feet of Death success or lack of, if that was going to happen, determined on what this next step was going to be, or did this idea always kind of there? And um,
for sure. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a sci-fi. If I want to go into all the genres, it's a sci-fi action zombie comedy. Just minor comedy. Uh, but I love when films don't take themselves too seriously and have a little bit of humor thrown in there. A big example of that is like Guardians of the Galaxy,
mhm.
huge sci-fi action, but it's also funny. Another sci-fi show that I love is Firefly. Same thing. It's it has a little bit of humor in there, so I really like that. But as far as what I pulled from my experiences with Feet of Death is two things. One, I know I need some sort of name, so I'm trying to get some sort of talent in there because uh, there is an audience for sci-fi and there is an audience for zombies. Hence why I'm having zombie. I don't call them zombies, but they're basically zombies. So I have those two specifically, so that way when you have a trailer or when you have key art, you'll see that and you'll be like, oh, that looks cool because I know this audience is for that. So those I'm taking into account, and then a negative I actually learned from Feet of Death is you actually touched on it just 2 seconds ago. Is audiences are so ADD these days and have such short attention spans that I literally scripted this one to be like go 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 go. And I
Mhm.
also actually heard this feedback from distributors when some of them I was reaching them is like they say you need to have something big happening every 5 to 10 minutes, like some sort of action piece or whatever, so you don't lose your audience because especially with AVOD the more they watch, the
Yeah.
more money you're going to make from it. So I have this literally from page one, it starts off with something exciting happening, and then try to every 5 to 10 minutes have some sort of actiony or some sort of something happening to keep those audiences' attention. So I learned that from specifically Feed of Death, in that like it is more of a slow burn for those first two acts. And
Mm.
whereas I like that, and actually one movie I talk to people a lot about is the original Alien. Like the first 20 to 40 minutes of that is such a slow burn, and you're
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
and you're building and you're building. And I love the movie, but if that had no names and that like no one knew what that was, and that came out today, you
Yeah.
would will be clicking off after 5 minutes. Granted, the set design is phenomenal and that whatnot, but you get my point in that like the you have to have you have to play into that attention span of today's audiences who are streaming this on Tubi for free. Like the bar
Uh,
could not get lower for their attention, because you know they're going
yeah.
to be on their phone, and you know like it's just so I'm specifically from the get go had that in mind.
Hmm. Yeah, in 1979, when everyone was going to be forced to sit in the theater, you can get away with whatever you want. But it's like, just compare the pacing of that first Alien film, which I love, by the way,
Yeah,
compared to the Alien Romulus movie that came out, which I thought was, for an Alien film, pretty on brand and pretty good, but just
yeah,
way more intense pacing, right? Oh, borderline more of a thriller than a space horror. But you're right, it's just about right now trying to make it work with audiences. Like, you got to do that. And I think you can approach films in the way we're talking right now, but still maintain the artistic creativity and do what you want to do. You know, it's not, I think some people hear this type of talk and feel like, oh, so I got to put myself in a box and not do what I want to make. And it's like, well, on one level, yes, like what gives anyone the right to just make whatever the heck they want with other people's money because you
yeah,
just feel it? Like, I think, again, some filmmakers are just audacious of how the world works, but also no, you can take the structure of what will work and then mold your personality, your creative idea into it. It's one of the, not regrets, because we'll see how it plays, but I don't have what I think is a big enough hook at the beginning of my film either. And it's not, I wouldn't
yeah,
call it a burn, but it's like, definitely looking back, it's not even out yet. I'm like, dang, I wish we could have something in the beginning to like maybe get that, going there. But
yeah,
yeah, attention, especially on AVOD, which is most likely where we're gonna have to play a lot in. All the indie films are, and yeah,
yeah.
it's all attention rate and getting
Yeah,
people there.
now I'll say from my experience of the earnings that we've made, that it's probably 70 to 80% AVOD. So like you have to keep that in mind, knowing that like even if you're lucky enough to get a limited theatrical and you have really good transactional, the majority of your sales or your earnings is still probably going to come from TVOD, and that's all about keeping the screens playing. And so if you lose them in that first 10 minutes, they're going to go on to whatever social media platform they want, or switch to something else, or put on any of the number of big budget movies that are on Tubi also for free. So,
And that
uh,
could vary algorithmically no different than a YouTube video or an Instagram post, right? It's like it's almost a
exactly.
similar type of algorithm there. Like if it's getting watched, you'll stay up there, you'll move up and maybe even go viral, or it'll send it down, right? And then it's
Yep.
harder. Would you say, because again, you have the Bigfoot angle, right? That is a great form of marketing and trying to get that fan base in. How much, if you do you have any sense of like what your personal marketing has done for all these different numbers you're getting? Like if you had done nothing, you'd sat back. Is the Bigfoot title doing any of the work for you? Or do you feel like if you wouldn't have been on this marketing campaign, no one knows where the film is, basically? Or a little bit
Uh,
of, probably hard to say.
that's the thing that sucks. If you don't self distribute, there is zero way of knowing if your marketing is paying off, because I don't even get monthly. I get quarterly reports, which is still better than some distributors who barely give you anything. But
Hmm.
one of the benefits of going with like a film hub is they update that, I think, weekly, if not even daily, I've heard.
Hmm.
So at least you can see if like, okay, I'm going to push real hard for this week, and then I can see immediately the following week if the numbers have changed at all. I can't do that. I have no way. And like the software is sophisticated enough that if you're distributing it, you can put the links and tie it to it, and it'll show you conversion rates. But I can't do that because the indie rights, our distributor, is doing all that back end stuff, and I only get quarterly. Not only are they quarterly the reports, but they're delayed by 3 months. So the report I actually literally just got today is second quarter of this year. So it's April, May, June is the like what I got for today. So it's so
Oh,
far. it's so far removed that there's no way for me to tell. So I am sure it's helped, but I guarantee the majority of it is the fact that it's Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Um, I'm I do think it makes a difference because when I'm pushing to say Tubi or whatever, because I've also played with whether I'm pushing to physical media on Amazon, whether I'm pushing to renting on Amazon, whether I'm pushing to Tubi. Uh, when I've pushed to Tubi, I do feel like I have seen it stay on it made it to the most popular horror list for a while, and I do feel like it stayed on there longer when I was pushing harder there than when I stopped. But at 4 cents a view, is it worth it? No, no, it's really not. So it's hard to tell. Versus if you're pushing to either physical media or renting and buying on Amazon, then I could make $2 a purchase, or if they buy it, $10 because I think Amazon takes 50%. So it's so hard to tell without the information, but I trickle the advertising dollars out because I feel like it's not killing me financially and it keeps just a little bit of traffic going to the site so it just doesn't completely disappear.
So when you say you're in the green or out of the black now, that from a Q2 report, you're able to pull that. So you actually have had quarters since then but you just haven't seen them yet, or
Yeah, I've gotten the first quarter we were out was only 30 days. So I've basically gotten 4.5 quarters of information. So just over a year worth of earnings is how we got out of the red. So yes, I have another 3 months of earnings that I won't see for another 3 months. And
gotcha.
then I'll have another 3 months. So it's just
Yeah,
delayed by 3 months, unfortunately.
gotcha. So what you're seeing is not like the last 3 months, it's almost like the 3 months before that run.
Exactly. So
Gotcha.
it kind of sucks. It makes advertising near impossible,
Yeah,
which
wow.
is
Wow.
the huge. So I will say to audience viewers, one out there, uh, the Indie Rights is an amazing distributor in that they're completely upfront about what they're about. They're extremely transparent. They do go to places like I think they're at MIPCON or whatever right now, or were recently. They go to all these different film markets, but if you don't have any names in them, it's highly unlikely they're going to make any independent sales at any of these markets. It's not completely impossible, but you're
Like
almost
X's or foreign territories or
yeah, that kind of thing. So anything beyond getting on Tubi and whatnot. So my point being that like if you're at this micro budget level, you might be better off just going with Film Hub because it's the same from the last time I looked at it, it's the same 80-20 split. You are in charge of your marketing either way, and you get more instant analytics, which is a game changer for your marketing, especially when
yeah.
you don't have a lot of money to spend. So I am
And it's
kind of
a choice that
almost
IndieWright makes not providing as detailed. Like they could do that. You're saying potentially it just they don't.
I don't
Or,
know what the infrastructure. Obviously, Film Hub is a tech company, and they have all of this stuff that's automated. So I am sure if Indie Rights wanted to invest in that, they could. But from what I'm aware, they only get monthly from some places or quarterly reports from Amazon and Tubi and that kind of thing, I believe. Now,
mm,
they do, I believe, get it more real time. So I don't think it has to be delayed, but I'm speculating there. My only point being is unless you think your film has a chance to sell at one of those markets to a different territory or something, you might be better off going with Film Hub purely because of those analytics.
well, yeah, and just from the inside stuff, and again, I love Indie Rights and I love Linda and their whole story. Gosh, I've listened to probably hours of her speak because they do it right. They do it well compared to a lot of the stuff out
Of
there.
course.
But yeah, I know for a fact that their thing is like that 10,000. Like they don't want to go over 50,000. In fact, I was told that like when they have a film that's over 50K, unless it just seems wow to them, they usually recommend not going with them in a lot of cases.
Oh, really?
Considering like films like yours are what they go for, it almost is sounding like based on what you're saying that Film Hub kind of is almost a better option just because of that data is so valuable. If we have to do the marketing ourselves and Indie Rights and Film Hub are both like, hey, 80-20 split, we can basically get you on these streamers that you just can't do yourself because they require us as the middleman. but I would say the majority of both of those filmmakers are probably like, that's all they're getting is put on those platforms. And like you said, if you're not thinking they're going to go make you these extra SVOD deals, and I don't know how Film Hub handles foreign territories, if at all. Um,
I mean,
but
well, YouTube is global. So once you're on YouTube, because they do distribute to film channels on YouTube, you are in a global audience. Like
yeah,
I believe Tubi is just North America, but and then Amazon also you can be global. There's different territories for Amazon. Like it took me a while to learn this, but there's like an Amazon Australia, an Amazon UK, Amazon North America, and so just because you're on Amazon doesn't mean you're in all of those globally, but you can get on those globally. It's just whether or not they pick it up.
well, this is an interesting question because I don't know how much your YouTube channel has stayed intact or what you've been doing on YouTube specifically, but I come from YouTube too, not like a big channel. And I know Indie Rights, like you said, they do release a lot on the YouTube channel. That's a default where a lot of their films go.
Yep.
I'm wondering, because my thought was if I was ever in that situation and it comes to my film having to come on YouTube, I kind of would just want to throw it on mine, because from my analysis of Indie Rights YouTube, yeah, some videos get all these views, but so many get almost nothing. That makes me think that that just had everything to do with that filmmaker's traffic to that link and not so much maybe Indie Rights. So I'm wondering, like, if you have been in that situation, like if you ever get to the point where YouTube would be where you would drop it, would you almost want it to be on your personal and push just as much there? Or like, does the Indie Rights YouTube bring something that I'm not recognizing?
I will say, unfortunately, my YouTube channel is like travel, RV, family. Doesn't transition to filmmaking, horror, sci-fi.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
my
yeah.
audience trans like when I did Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, Seed and Spark crowdfunding, I put that up there, and I don't think a single person probably invested from we had, I think, 80,000 subscribers. So I don't think we got any, because it's just the wrong kind of content. Like, people
Yeah.
subscribe to channels for very niche reasons. As far as Indie Rights' YouTube channel, they do have, I think, they're almost at, I think, like 1 million subscribers now. They're, I think, at like 750,
Oh,
something like
okay.
that. And so
That's good.
you are right in that I have gone through and looked at their different movies, and some of them might get 5,000 views. We've been lucky enough that we're, I think, at like almost 200 on their channel.
Oh,
And
you're
then,
under.
yeah, we did, like, so it was on, we had like a 60-day TVOD window where we were only on for transactional. Then after that, we got onto Tubi for a while. And then I think after a couple months on Tubi, they dropped it on their YouTube channel. Because from their research and what they've shown, being on YouTube doesn't detract from people watching it on Tubi. They're very different audiences. And it's still shocking these days, even though Tubi is such a huge platform, there's so many people that have no idea what it is. So YouTube is just an insane audience. I think the analytics are like, they outbeat like Disney, Hulu, and like Netflix combined. Like, it's
Yeah.
a stupid amount of views that YouTube gets. So I think having those subscribers do help in that you get those initial eyeballs there. And as opposed to if you put it on your channel that has maybe, I don't know, 10,000 or 20,000, if you can't get that same kind of watch time, versus if you get that initial watch time and your movie is good and you get those views, then as you know, YouTube's algorithm will kick in. It'll start recommending it. You'll start pushing more and more. So yes, I will say the benefit of that is they do have that built-in audience. Now, with Film Hub, there are film channels such as Indie Rights' film channel that will license it from Film Hub and do a similar thing. So your movie can get on there. What, for better or worse, whether you want that or not. I know some people really feel like they don't want their movie on YouTube because it cheapens it. Whereas I can see that point of view. There's also just a massive audience there. We did actually recently, it kind of surprised me because I didn't know they were doing this. In addition to Feed of Death being on their channel, I can't even remember what the movie channel is, but another movie channel released it with like a different AI cover art, like whatever. And so I thought somebody had pirated it. So I reached out to Indie Rights, and that I will give them this. They are amazing at responding. Usually it's same day. And so Cheers One are like, no, that's one of our partners that we licensed it to. And so even though we had gotten millions of impressions on Tubi, a couple 100,000 on their YouTube. We got another like 90,000 views on that film channel. So
Wow.
the audience is there, and there are billions of people on YouTube. So even though it feels cheap, it definitely has its plus side.
Now,
Did I
are
answer the question? Because I don't even remember what you asked.
Tubi's AVOD, YouTube's AVOD, they just have more than films. And I think in the future, every platform might just be a YouTube, a Netflix. Like it'll have feature films, it'll also have vlogs and content because they're all competing with each other, right?
Yep.
Just
I mean, Netflix just announced that they are picking up podcasts, so they're now going to start streaming video podcasts from Spotify.
now, are there a difference you're seeing in the payouts as far as like AVOD revenue from YouTube versus Tubi? Is it similar, different, or
I believe Tubi's is a slightly higher CPM, but I did not like on this quarter. I didn't dive into that to look at it. We've obviously made more on Tubi, just because there's more impressions there.
Mhm.
Like I said, the one quarter before we had something like 3 million impressions. Now I think that's 3 million ads played, not 3 million views, and you play multiple ads throughout the movie. But still, that's pretty
Gotcha.
phenomenal.
That's what I was gonna ask you. What does Tubi show you? Just like ads being watched, or can you also break it into like, oh, here's the movie was clicked on this many times? Does it show you watch time? Like, oh, we're getting people clicking off around this moment more. Like, are you able to see any of those analytics like you would on a YouTube channel?
I
Or
do. I do think we get minutes, or maybe that's Amazon, because every different distributor is different. So Amazon will give you different things than Tubi will. But from what I remember last, it was impressions was the analytic that we got. I do know that Indie Rights they sent out a quarterly newsletter, and they just updated the kind of information that they're giving as far as they're changing it up a little bit. So we might now be getting more info, but I haven't dove into that yet.
okay. Well, dude, it's been a minute. I'll let you go. I just a lot of great stuff there, but I really appreciate it. We should definitely chat again. Keep us updated with the future project and how things are going out there for sure.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. All right, have a good one.